And they're not just open positions. The idea is for one of them to have a medical focus, one of the positions focused on early childhood, and then a parent or consumer focus. So those three different types of individuals is what we're looking at. And the way our bylaws are written, those applications will come through the executive committee, and the executive committee will make a recommendation. And certainly we're going to be looking at other issues such as diversity, representation kind of geographically around Central Oregon. So we're going to be looking at some different components to try and find a really good fit. So just wanted to give people a heads up around that. We're getting a little audio feedback from somewhere. I'm not sure where that's happening. Brenda, I wanted to ask you a question about the application process. How if people want to apply or we want to recommend someone, Brenda, how does that application get filled out?
Out within the next week, and we'll receive applications. They will go to executive committee, whatever has come in to the process by the January meeting, and you guys will make consideration at your February executive committee meeting with recommendations to the full board at our March meeting. So there are folks who have previously submitted applications, and part of my process is to go back to them and ascertain whether they still have an interest and whether their application will go in the pool. So if you have a pending application out there and you are still interested, you would go into the pool for consideration by the executive committee.
So if anyone has questions, they could contact you directly, Brenda, is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. The other part of the renewals is we have 4 current board members whose term is expired. So Carolyn Cruz, Desiree Margot, Diane Tipton, and myself are technically expired at this point. And all of those people have indicated they want to remain involved and interested in the renewal for a 3-year term. Awkwardly, so the executive committee is recommending reappointment for myself and others, and it needs to be approved by this group. So we need to have a vote on moving forward with renewal for these 4 members. So I need a motion and a second for that, or if there's any comments.
This is Kate. I motion to approve moving forward on that.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second. Amy, I'll do it.
Okay, very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. I'm still a member of the board. How convenient. So thank you. That's good. So next on our agenda is a focus on a mission moment. So I believe I'm kicking it over to Letitia and Sorelli.
So, hi. Thank you, Tim.
All right.
So how do we pull up the PowerPoint?
I am going to make you guys host here. Do you have the PowerPoint, I'm assuming? Or do you want me to do it and you just tell me when to click through?
Yeah. Okay. The second.
The
Second option. We have it. It's physical.
I love physical PowerPoint.
Hold on just a minute. It told me since I'm recording this video, I can't minimize it. Hold on.
Oh. Maybe we are going to have
There
to
we
be.
go. We're good. We're good. I don't know. Hold on.
There's special effects. is great. The whole region and so remotely. I'm digging it.
So we can get started and just give a little overview before, yeah.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. All right.
Awesome.
So what we did in Madras is on December 19th, we gathered a group of parents. We try to get like different types, but we mostly got the result was Latino parents that came in.
Mm-hmm.
So next slide. Click.
Or can we click?
No, I'll do it. Hold on.
So we gathered.
There we go.
So the facilitators were Brenda, Sorelli, and I. It started at 6, and we gathered around 10 individuals to participate. Next slide.
These were some of the demographics that we were able to absorb by the participants' disclosures. We didn't provide a survey. It was more of verbal disclosures during the conversation that we had. So it's not 100% accurate. It's really rough. But based on the amount of participants that we had, these were the percentages that we can get. And so we had predominantly second language speakers there, English being the second language. And we had one youth, one adolescent amongst the 10 adults. We had a diversity of sectors present at the table. Everybody had different roles within the workforce. And all of the parents there, with the exception of the adolescent, was a parent, right?
Right. Yeah. And 55% of them were born immigrants. As you can see, 35% were from the West Coast of the United States, and then 25% were second generation. So next slide.
So why did we ask participants to join us? And initially we did want to focus on an underrepresented group. And we wanted to see if we can get the Spanish-speaking perspective. But we realized quickly that a lot of our parents here are bilingual at some level. They feel most comfortable speaking their native tongue, but they were for the most part bilingual. However, and that's the next slide, so I won't even talk about that yet. So why do we ask them to join us? Well, because the Early Learning Hub is working really hard to ensure that every child is given all the supportive tools to enter school ready to learn. And as you can see from the bullet points, we had big ideas, and we wanted to collect meaningful information, meaningful experiences that would help shape the work that Early Learning is doing.
As well as we wanted to learn from these opportunities, and the way that I saw it was more get those experiences where they did not have that opportunity to be successful. And this could be by experience, because we did, like Sorelli said, we had different type of the class. The way that I took it was we had past experience, current experience, and future experience. So we were trying to capture all of that in one bundle. Like, this is how it happened for us in the past. This is what's working for me now. And this is what we hope to see in the future. We also wanted to bridge that communication gap with diverse languages and learning to create when they came together. And the main thing was to listen to that voice and to make them feel like they are being listened. Next slide. So one of the things that we made sure we prepared was childcare, which actually, it turned out we did not need childcare at the last minute.
But it was good that we had it.
Yes. We had warm food and drinks and a central location, which was the annex right next to the library here in Madras. again, the facilitators, which was us, we were there, and then we started with our questions.
Awesome questions.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. These are awesome questions. This is our framework. And although we didn't directly ask the questions as they are written, we took the context of them and synthesized it, condensed it, so we could have a conversation. So we were all sitting around the table and we were just talking, conversating, and we were eating and we were drinking, and it was a really pleasant experience, even at times when there was some minor storming from what you expect when safety is in place. We wanted to know about their experience, as Leticia framed it earlier, of how it used to be, how it is now, and what would they like for it to see in the future, and what would be helpful. So they centered on the services and access and early learning. These were the questions that we came up. Do you make anything?
No, unless, do you guys want us to read the questions or?
No? I'm basing it on Tim. No. No. All right, next slide.
This is Kate. Slide.
I like this. See, I like this.
Just do this, Tim.
So this is what we discovered. We discovered that our participants had a lot to say.
A lot.
So it was good that we wanted to listen.
Yeah, because they had a lot of experiences, a lot of things that I guess not everybody experiences. Like some had like rough experiences, some had like good things to say, which was awesome.
To start with.
Yes.
Once safety got there, more constructive feedback was offered.
So our participants had a lot to say, like it says right there. One of the things that we discovered is Spanish started leading the conversation. Even though we had bilingual people, and we did have one mom that she grew up speaking English, but understood the Spanish. She just jumped in and started speaking Spanish, and then just adding, like answering in English, of course, if there was something.
Even Brenda.
Yeah, Brenda.
So we shifted into Spanglish. It was Spanish and English back and forth simultaneously, the way we do when we are at home, when we were growing up as bilingual people. So it was really nice and comfortable as a facilitator to be amongst that group, because you don't really see those instances, at least from my perspective. When we do our trainings, it's always the dominant language, which is English. And if there are any Spanish services, it's either translation,
right,
and the parents or the participants have to wear something to listen to the Spanish, or it's different formatting and it's not as colloquial. So it was interesting to see, and I just wanted to share that it added some richness to the conversation. And
next slide.
So these are our takeaways.
Yes, language sensitivity. So focus more on language, responsiveness for second language speakers and non-English speakers. Inability to speak English does not equal diminish conjugative capacity. So one of the things that some parents have to say, and there is, speaking Spanish should not define the way that I understand basic academic skills. This was a parent from a school-aged child. The other parent said, my husband and I were teachers in Mexico when we arrived here to the United States. Our children were placed in a lower grade. Although my children were advanced for their age, when it comes to math and writing, language was the only barrier. It was frustrating to see that my children had to start from zero just because they did not speak English. So that was one of the things that was like interesting to know, because that was one of the things that the parent was saying is like, why is it that because they can't speak English, but because they do have these other skills, they have to start all the way from like kindergarten, when maybe they're in the other academic skills up to like first or second grade. That's the way I understood it. I don't know, Sorelli, what do you?
Yes, that's true. I mean, the conversation that ensued was based on some times, and I think we're going to touch on that with other comments, where the fact that an individual or a child speaks a different language, that doesn't mean that they are lacking in other subject areas.
Right.
And when there's assessments done, if they're done in their language that they are comfortable in, then we would see that the results would be, oh, they place in at this academic level. Whereas what was in, I guess, their experiences were demonstrating that it was presumed that they were behind developmentally because they spoke a different language and they couldn't navigate the English language. That was the conversation that occurred.
Okay. Next slide. Support teachers and staff. Support staff to support children in their home language. Conduct effective screenings for children, not solely based on having thick accents. My daughter was paired up with a foreign student because my daughter spoke English and Spanish. The teachers would say to the class that they needed to stay quiet. The only person that could speak during class was my daughter because she was interpreting. It's great to know that my daughter was used as a resource, but I believe the school should have been more prepared to support all students. My child was a 6th grader at the time, and this was a parent of an adolescent youth.
When my daughter had just started going to preschool, there was a teacher that believed that my child needed speech therapy due to her accent. As a parent, I did not question it. I took her to speech therapy after the referral was placed. The specialist saw my child, and even an audiology test was done. My daughter was doing great, but the teacher was insistent even after I had gone through all the process. It upset me when the teacher kept on insisting that my child needed to be referred, even after the specialist came back saying my child was fine. I changed my child to another teacher, and this never happened again. A parent of school and adult children. Did we change? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I just wanted to say that in that previous slide, with this one, with the support for teachers and staff, I mean, the conversation, these quotes seem like they were demonstrating how they were being misunderstood, but the actual conversation was they understand the immense work that staff are doing, that the teachers are doing, and they saw that there was need for staff to be supported. And I thought that was really thoughtful and mindful of parents, because a lot of times we think that parents don't really quite understand the pressures of having to manage and navigate so many students. And so they were recognizing that it must be really hard, and that if they had more support, then they could support their children. And so they wanted to work together. And I thought that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we can go.
Next slide. So cultural representation, responsiveness. Bilingual staff in the classroom is a plus all the way around. Loss of language leads to forced assimilation. Loss of cultural identity is tied to language. As a parent that tries to teach my children to be bilingual, it has become harder due to English is spoken at all times, even at home. I'm trying to teach Spanish to my children and they refuse to speak Spanish. And we don't know why. This was a parent of a school-aged child.
Other adults don't allow for their kiddos to speak Spanish at home, although they are Spanish speakers. This is when our native tongue is lost. Parent of pre-kindergarten and school-aged children.
I make sure that my children speak Spanish at home. That is our first language, and I tell my children that this will help them in the future. This makes them bilingual. If they fill out an application for job, they will be able to check off one more box. That will differentiate them from others that speak one language only. Parent of an adolescent child.
More diversity in the programming. The parent of an adult of adult children. And in this conversation piece, we noticed that the families wanted to protect their culture and their language, but they disclosed some loss of having to let go of that language, and some disclose a loss for not being able to learn that language. As that mom that you remember.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see all sides of how the impact of having to acclimate to a new country and a new language, and how it emotionally impacted them as well. And then we also had even some parents say, well, that's what you do when you go into a new country, and they had internalized that message. And so it was a good discussion there, and it's where it became a little stormy, but it was a great learning opportunity for everyone.
We had ground rules.
We did have ground rules.
Yeah, so that way they knew that
It was safe.
it was safe, and
We respect people.
yes. Next slide. Barriers, accessibility. Preschool is not accessible due to financial barriers. Not all children meet qualification criteria. Well, my daughter was able to attend Head Start at no cost to us due to my husband was considered an agricultural worker. However, now with my son, we are unable to provide him with the same experience due to my husband's job has changed, and now it's a cost that we cannot afford. It's unfortunate due to I compare the difference between my children's learning, and although I try to teach my child as much as I can, it's not the same. Parent of a small child.
The question if their child had attended an early learning or preschool program, this answer was no. Cost is not in our budget. Parent of a school age and small children, and then not my second child, we cannot afford it. Parent of children under 5. Do you remember that conversation? I think.
Yeah, I think that was one of the one of the gals that came in. She was saying, and actually she's the one that had mentioned that her sister-in-law does not allow their kids to speak Spanish. But she was saying that it was unfortunate because she is actually bilingual. She did graduate high school, but the thing is that when her daughter was able to attend the early learning, the preschool, that she felt that her daughter was more prepared and she felt more comfortable sending her daughter to kindergarten because she had more experience now in going to school and participating. And now with her son, she feels like, the way that she expressed it was, that she felt like it was not the same, that even though she's trying to teach like the ABCs and stuff, other things come up, like she has to work. She's a housekeeper. So once in a while she has to leave, and she can't dedicate that same time that her daughter got in school to really teach him everything he knows. So he's prepared for kindergarten. She feels insecure that just the experience of how she would see how her daughter already had all this knowledge compared to her son, and he's getting ready to go to kindergarten like in 2 years, I think, or a year. She doesn't feel like he got that same quality of knowledge. I think that's
So there's fear.
There's fear there. So that's what we gathered with that
Barriers.
comment. Yeah, the barriers. Next slide. Navigation.
I just want to stop for a minute. So just doing a time check. I know I started you guys late, and at the same time, I want to manage a little bit around the agenda. So can you do just a couple more minutes and wrap it up, or?
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
I mean, the document can be sent to you, right? And so you can read it at your leisure. Because basically that's what we're doing. We're just reading our findings and the key takeaways, because it was more of a discussion. It was really rich, and I think we can take a lot of takeaways from this, and there's things to celebrate as well. And you can move on to the last pieces of the PowerPoint, because we talk about also what they feel is working and will continue to work. But the bottom line is that parents want to be included. They felt heard from what we received feedback, and they want to partner with with the services that are available to them. They just don't always feel like they have a title or the background education to do so. And I think that if we can provide some strategic plans in motion to engage parents so they can become more active, I think that.
The other thing with that, just to add, one of the things that did come back as a takeaway, what they're saying, feedback we got was, I know that there's a lot of outreach out there. It would be nice to have them all group up at one point also, because
Like a calendar?
Because everybody's targeting the same thing. And it feels like they go to recurrent meetings where they already discussed this, and now they're going here and they're discussing the same thing. And in order to engage more parents, it would be nice if we had a calendar, like you're saying, and at the same time, if the conversation is the same thing, kind of targeted within one meeting and not just like in every different place. And that's what I gathered from that meeting as well, that they do want to have a calendar. They actually were appreciative of this meeting, and they felt like their voice was being heard, like Sarah Lee said, because that was one of the questions we had is, do you think that these type of meetings is something that you guys would continue to, that you feel like your voice is being heard? And that was one of the things that they said is yes. They actually appreciated the meeting and were asking when we were going to have another meeting, and then that's when the calendar came up. So, I mean, it was like Sarah Lee said, it was a good dialogue with them. And I think it's just continue and doing the efforts of reaching out to the parents, and not because we had one meeting does that mean we stop. It's just coordination as well, because now we have these people that are willing to be engaged, and that's how the little chain starts, right? You invite some, and then if you do word of mouth. So, I mean, I think it was a good meeting. Like Sarah Lee says, there's more information in there. We are reading off the PowerPoint because it's the first time I think we do this, so I wasn't quite sure what to say. I'm like, do they want me to read the whole thing? I mean, I should have gotten this from Brenda. Brenda was great, but she offered to, and I was like, nope, we got this.
Yeah, this is Kate. I just have a quick comment, and that is, well, first of all, this is amazing work. Thank you guys so much. I wonder what the board would think if we brought this, and maybe we already have, but to the equity committee to kind of comb through and spend a little more time with these guys. And because I do think the insights that I'm hearing just through having the back and forth that you guys are sharing is really important. I don't want to lose that. And I think that maybe through kind of some dedicated time to this, we might be able to actually surface some recommendations from that work. And so I just wanted to throw that out there and see what other folks might think about that.
I'm in. Letty's in. Oh, I guess I'm the only one. Now, I mean, it's there. If you guys need it, I think, Brenda, you guys would send it out, or people have access to it. I'm not sure.
I can email it out.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions from anyone?
Well, hey, Brenda, this is Kate. I'm not sure. Do you think that it would be worthwhile inviting these guys to the equity committee to kind of walk through this? Because I don't think you get as much out of it just by reading it.
So we maybe didn't do a good introduction into this, but this mission moment was brought to you by these two as members of the equity committee.
Okay.
So this was a first step into that whole piece around better understanding and building empathy for the populations that we're all wanting to serve, but maybe don't have understanding.
Yeah.
So these guys bravely stepped up and said, we have a group in Madras, let's do this. And so while my name was on one of those first slides, I did absolutely nothing except so they did all of this, and there is a wealth of information in the rest of the slides, and I do.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm hoping to get it out of this is, I mean, when they were walking through this, I saw some like actionable things. So I want to know, it's great. If we ask input and have folks give their input, it'd be nice to know what we're actually going to do about it. So I wonder if there's a way that we can pull out from this some action items.
Yes.
So maybe this is a good place to just ask Brenda to step forward with a response to this that is going to be around taking some concrete action, because I think that is how you build good relationships. So it's nice to have a one-time event, but really it's more about a relationship. And you guys did an amazing thing, really outstanding. Thank you so much for bringing this to us. And I'm kind of crowding up the rest of the agenda, so I think I'm going to move on. Thank you again. So next on our agenda is a work plan focus, which is around literacy promotion. And as I understand, Buzzy Nielsen is here to talk about Imagination Library.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to be handing around some books around here. Sorry, folks online. I'm here to tell you guys a little bit about the Dolly Park Imagination Library. I know some of you already know about it. Pretty big presentation for that. Tell me where I should stand so the people know.
Just right here. My computer is the. Okay. Do you want a clicker? There you go.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. Obviously, I'm director of the Crook County, and of course, we are very interested in making sure that people love to read. And one of our primary missions as a public library is to help kids, teach early literacy skills. For a long time, library story times were some of the only things that really focused a lot on early childhood literacy. So we're really happy to see that there are a lot more entities that are now getting into the business. So early childhood literacy has some really important impacts later on in life. It affects, academic performance in school. It affects, later life outcomes. I mean, even things, you can correlate it to things like incarceration rates when they're in their 20s. So early childhood literacy has a lot of impacts. If you start early, it's much less expensive and it has a massive impact. So we are, together with the Early Learning Hub of Central Oregon, have been working in Crook County to raise funds for the Dolly Park Imagination Library. This program gives access to children. I'll tell a little bit more about how it works in a minute. It helps increase children's vocabularies, which is really important for when they hit school. It stimulates the love of reading, and it promotes positive adult-child interactions. So why? We've noticed at the library, and also we see it in some of our test scores, that Crook County does not do as well on measures of early childhood literacy as some of the other counties in Central Oregon. So on the left side of the screen there, you see rates of recognition of letter sounds, and then on the right, recognition of letter names. So Crook County is the purple line you see there. So we're a little on the low side. We see this also anecdotally at the library, where we just see some pretty low rates of parents getting their children interested in reading. And it's not necessarily deliberate, but a lack of awareness of the importance of early childhood literacy. Our children's librarian, Mary Ryan, is a tireless advocate of early childhood literacy, and she sees this a lot, where she talks to parents and tells them things, and they're just not aware of the impact that this can have later on. So Imagination Library has been shown to have a fairly large impact. So of some of the research that's been done, between 66 and 75% of families read more to their children after receiving books through the Imagination Library. And this effect is amplified the lower the family's income is. And for 4% of families, Imagination Library was the primary source of books in their home. So you probably want to know, this is Wayne's favorite thing. Children who have access to books enter school with 30,000 more words in their vocabulary than children who do not. That is a massive impact. So you probably want to know how this program works. It is available to children ages 0 through 5. So what happens is, from the day they are born, the child is mailed a free book every month until they turn 5. The very first book that they receive is The Little Engine That Could, because it's Dolly Parton's favorite book in the whole world. And then from then on, the books are geared towards the child's age. As the child ages, the books get more complex. About 2 of the books a year also are bilingual in English and Spanish. So these books get sent directly through the mail to the child. They are addressed to the child. The parent would sign up with some sort of organization. We in Crook County are going to have several organizations that are going to be interested in helping partner to sign people up. In addition to the ESD, we've been working with the perinatal program, St. Charles Library. Obviously, we're interested. The schools are very interested. So parents would sign up. They get put into a database that only gets used for this purpose. It does not get used for anything else. And then the child would receive a free, nice book every month. So these these books are actual examples of things that were on the 2017 list that they mailed out to children. There also is an annual survey that the parents get, so we can kind of learn a little bit about how the program is affecting them. We are planning on working with the Postal Service to make sure that books that maybe don't end up in the right place do. We know that here in Central Oregon, we have a lot of housing insecurity. In fact, I just read an article, median home price in Bend is $418,000. So, and in Prineville, we have a lot of couch surfers. So that's definitely something we're looking into as well. So it's a very inexpensive. Where am I going? That's not. Help.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Hey, there we go. So this program is extremely inexpensive. The cost of the program is $25 per child per year. That is less than $2.50 a book. I, as a librarian, can get books wholesale, and I can't get them anywhere near this price. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library has worked with publishers to get a really good deal on these items, and that cost includes not just the book, but the mailing of the book as well. All of the administrative costs are paid for by the Dollywood Foundation. What we're trying to do is to raise money for a graduated implementation of this program in Crook County. So what I mean by that is that we would start with the children who are born during that year, and then by year 5 of the program, then we would have the 5 different cohorts in the program. So this is a chart that Brenda put together. The most recent census data that we have estimates that there are about 925 children in Crook County from ages 0 to 5. I mentioned the cost of the program. Despite all of their best efforts, the Dolly Parton Imagination Library finds that communities, the median community can end up getting about 60% participation. We, of course, will do better than that because we're going to. So this here assumes or around 60% participation. Over the 5 years, if we can raise $5,750 per year, we can cover every child in Crook County that fits within these age groups. That is in part thanks to the Rippey Family Foundation, which is based out of Hood River. They have they helped pilot this program in Wilsonville to much success, And based on that success, they have agreed to pay for half of the first, or they've agreed to match any contributions made during the first 3 years of the program, 1-to-1, for all of the rural counties in Oregon, communities in all of the rural counties in Oregon. So this is in addition to Crook County, Jefferson County also is eligible for this. This tiny print you guys just like showing like what the costs over the years will be. Thank you. This is a really great partnership opportunity. You know, I've already talked about how important early childhood literacy is to outcomes later on in life. It addresses some really key things that are needs in Crook County. It engages parents, and you know, it's one of the things that we try really hard to do in the library is when we do story times, we not only read to the children, but we try to, along the way, teach parents how to engage. And this is a program that helps them do that. I mentioned it does have books in both English and Spanish. I already mentioned some of the partners that are interested in this, and we have an opportunity to leverage some funds for this. We've already had a lot of success fundraising. We got $1,000 from Cook County Rotary, and of course, I forgot to bring the check. I'm sorry, Brenda. Yeah. So we've gotten $1,000 from Hood River Rotary. We've gotten some individual donations from the Pineville Seroptimus. Kiwanis has as well. Wayne, do you want to talk about Kiwanis?
Yeah, we see great value in this program. We're involved in early learning with the K-3 summer school program. We understand the value of early intervention. This was a no-brainer for us. It fits into our mission, and so we were happy to be one of the people that supported this financially. It really right is in our wheelhouse because of the advantage we have with matching funds from the Rippey Foundation, but also we have the advantage of having people that are doing a lot of the lifting and the managing of the program. So we can be a financial supporter and really help something that is obviously good come about. I think the check is either in the mail, maybe. I do know that at one of our meetings a month ago, we allocated at our board meeting $2,000 for this program. And I would be very surprised if we didn't continue to be a supporter of this program. There's pretty much universal understanding in our group that this is really good and is workable and is efficient in the time that it addresses a problem. I would say that we've learned in the 4 years that we've done our summer school thing, that probably one of the major problems is the social readiness of the K kids, kindergarten kids, who are all, they're identified as underperformers when they come into reading math program. But a lot of the problems that they have are they're underperforming in the skill set, but they are also not as able to learn. And some of that, I believe, personally, think it will be mitigated by the fact that maybe their families will read to them and be with them more and help with that socialization process so that they will be a more capable learner when they're exposed to those opportunities. So this is a tremendous program. We're very happy as Pineville Kiwanis to be a part of it.
And our friends at the Crook County Library also gave $1,000 and have put another $1,000 into this year's budget. So all told, we have about $4,500 right now, and that we have not solicited donations from the general public yet. So we're well on our way there.
Yeah. Well, on this slide about partnership, since this is an EL Hub board meeting, it seems important to hear, maybe Brenda, in less than 30 seconds, what the role the EL Hub has played in this. What have you done in partnership here?
So I was very happy to trail around behind Buzzy and, or in some cases, lead Buzzy, but the partnership in the community to go out and find that community investment that's beyond the typical partners. We are also managing the database. Marcy, is managing the database. So as a backbone organization, those logistics, and giving people the opportunity to actually contribute to something as part of the bigger whole and see the outcome. And we will continue to report back to them about those impacts as well, so that we are raising the voice about the impact of early childhood services with our partners.
And several of our partners do direct outreach either to homes or to schools, and we're going to be working with them. I know, among other things, our Mary Ryan, our children's librarian, has been talking to the People and Brothers who are also a part of this program, and they are extremely excited about this program. So,
Buzzy, I need to interrupt again. Oh, look, the last slide. I need to manage the time in our meeting, and just want to wrap up this part. We have to get to Juntos Aprendemos as well. So
yeah,
if you can wrap up.
That's all I really had. Do you guys have any questions for any of us?
Heather, and I have a question. Brenda, I know you and I briefly talked about this. Is there any opportunity for parts of Deschutes County to be able to participate in this?
Absolutely. We are at this point trying to take advantage of that low-hanging fruit offered by the Rickey Family Foundation, but I can tell you I am leaving here to go to La Pine because there are two groups in La Pine that have decided that they would like to help support this project in spite of no matching funds because it's in a larger county. And so I believe that they will pull that off, and they will be next behind Crook, Jefferson, Warm Springs. We didn't call out Warm Springs, but those are in the hopper, and I think they will be the next in line to start enrollment, and look for that to happen in the spring. And then I think we step back and start looking at where else in, across the region could benefit from the service, and there's some energy around that. One of the challenges is that you have to identify an area at the very smallest by zip code. And so how we do that and set up enrollment, it's much easier where La Pine is a city to do it down there. But where within Bend we can help provide those services, because I don't think any of us want to be in a position where we have two kids in a room and we can offer to one, but we can't to the other. So that's our challenge that we will have to address moving forward.
But I think thinking big, this is regional.
Yeah.
Like,
and even without the match, the return on investment of this program is kind of a no-brainer. It's huge.
Yeah, it is definitely is not a standalone program, and I want people to understand that this is providing a resource to support what a lot of our early childhood programs are already instilling in parents, but there isn't the funds to provide the books for that support. So we see this as strengthening the larger system and the way people are already doing to hopefully a better outcome in.
And then of course we in Crook County can make all the mistakes so the rest of the region can learn from them.
Sure.
Actually, no, we're going to learn from the mistakes of other people.
and I was curious, you mentioned that 2 of the books a year are bilingual. And is the content multicultural as well, or is it just the Very Hungry Caterpillar?
No, it's generally multicultural. So one of the books that's floating around somewhere is called Abuela, and actually the copy I brought is on Spanish, but it does tend to be multicultural when I look at the titles.
The titles are.
Yeah, they can't do a strictly Spanish or completely bilingual program because again, the Dollywood Foundation's worked hard to try to get the cost down, and accessing high quality. You guys probably already know this. Accessing high quality Spanish language costs more money.
Well, very good. This is Tim again. I just want to wrap this part up and move us on to the next agenda item. So, Buzzy, thank you so much. Very good. So next is Juntos Aprendemos. And Katie, we're going to hear from you.
Great, thanks, Tim. I'm just going to try to get us back on time and do kind of a quick 1-minute overview of this. I think everyone got an A3 in their packet or in an email today. And for those of you who aren't familiar, this is the process the Health Council has lifted up in our region to think a little bit differently about how we come together and experiment in some of the work that we're trying to do to serve children and families. And so this is one that was initially created by our Latino Success Initiative work group with a focus on early Spanish literacy. And over the course of months, this group of about 40 folks and 20 to 40 on any given work group kind of coming together and fleshing out kind of the state of where we're at now, where is low-hanging fruit, where are bright spots, and where can we put some effort behind work. And so the Imagination Library work is part of this kind of just regional plan. There is a ton that's in here, and one of the really exciting pieces that I think Brenda wanted me to touch on was the Juntos Aprendemos work. In a nutshell, this is a program that invites children 3 to 5 into what will soon be their elementary schools to read in Spanish with their parents. It is a program that's run out of the Latino Network in Multnomah County for the past 16 years with really incredible results in terms of closing gaps in letter identification, sound identification, and in kindergarten, upon kindergarten entry, as well as in 3rd grade reading. They have incredible outcomes like 99% on-time kindergarten registration, parents who are much more highly engaged when their children enter kindergarten and are involved in the school, parents feeling comfortable as first teacher to their children, and so the list kind of goes on, and I'm happy to share more. So it has a number of folks have come to me over the past 6 months to say, is this something we could get to Central Oregon? So we are working with 3 of our school districts and some of our other early learning partners to get this pilot going in the fall of 2017, and hopefully 3 of our elementary schools. So I will leave it at that and say that is another example of a component of the larger work. And then the last piece being this A3 is really, these documents are organic and living. And so we are already, I was talking to Heather from Deschutes County today about how to kind of expand beyond the Latino population and start to include some other work. And so we're building on that. And then the Early Learning Hub is piloting, which you'll hear about in a minute, some native language book development as well, which we're going to kind of encompass in the regional literacy work. So that is that.
Wow, that was very succinct. My goodness. Would it be helpful to show on the screen the A3? I know you did it really quickly, but at the same time, that was pretty impressive to see that, and it's a pretty complicated form, but it's got a ton of information on it. So, and Marcy, you sent that out, was it today or yesterday, quite recently?
You want to show it now or in a few minutes when we talk about it again?
Oh, let's wait. So sorry, I didn't know it was coming up later.
That's okay.
That sounds good. So let's move forward then with investment committee reports. And Brenda's going to set a little context around these 3 different projects.
So hopefully you all had a chance to spend a little bit of time on this section in the packet. It's really exciting that we are moving toward getting some boots on the ground in some of the work that's reflected in our work plan. You have a investment committee meeting brief that gives you a little bit of insight into the vetting conversations that happen among the investment group. All of these proposals are brought to you in that A3 format. So that was the reference to this one coming up again as part of the literacy proposal. And then the second piece you have in your packet is the service funds outline, and that document shows what funds that we have for investment purposes. The areas in red reflect where the investments that we are considering today would fall. And the bottom line is the second column under the dates. If we were to fund everything today, we still would have just short of $11,000 on the table for this fiscal year, with new funds coming available for investment later this summer. So I just want people to know that we have ample funds to cover what is available. Hillary Saraceno was tapped to do the proposal overview for the developmental screening proposal, which is the first one in your packet, and she sends her regrets. She was called off to a budget committee meeting this afternoon, so have her own money discussions to have. So I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I would ask Donna, I know, is on the line. I'm not sure any of the other primary partners are in the room to speak to this, but please add to if I miss something. Can you say that this has already been approved?
Will do.
So Katie's asking if I need to back up to do a reminder of the process. At your last meeting in November, the investment committee brought forward the proposal outline for how they would vet proposals, what the criteria would be. We're using the A3 structure and then a overview of a narrative to add in, because there's only so much room in the boxes for the details behind it. And so that's the format that we're bringing to you today. 3 pieces beyond the A3 that were included in those guidelines moving forward was, there was an ask to include information about how our proposals are serving our priority population in a culturally relevant manner. Specifically calling out the partnerships around the development of the proposal, and then at the back of your summaries, justification for the use of hub funds. And that committee forwarded to the group that overview that hub fund investment should be made strategically around areas where without the funding it would not happen, as a leverage to additional funds to do a systems piece, and or in a timeline that we couldn't obtain funding from other resources. So I think those were the 3 major bullets. And so all of these come to you vetted through that process. Is that good? Questions? Okay. So the pathways from developmental screening to services, the why about why this proposal is important is that we've spent 3 years promoting developmental screening and trying to get the numbers up, and that is happening. But in spite of that, we are still seeing high numbers of kids entering kindergarten with issues that were not identified nor served appropriately prior to coming into school. And so in an effort to close the loop, so to speak, we are looking to really develop a system where developmental screening happens early, it happens often at the intervals, and as a result, if there is resulting need for follow-up, that there are pathways and a feedback system that makes referrals to appropriate services and feedback from those services back to primary care providers about whether services were accessed and what the results of those were, so that if that doesn't basically address the issues, there is a way to do follow-up on that. And right now, those connections are broken between our community-based programming and primary care referrals. So this proposal is to build that system. The majority of the funds around this proposal have to do with a 2-year project engaging the Pediatric Improvement Project, I have to remember what the acronym stands for, with OHSU, where they would come in and work with primary care providers and our early childhood programs to close those loops. Primary partners to this project and have signed on are COPA, Central Oregon Pediatric Associates, and Mosaic Medical as our primary care partnerships, our home visiting programs on the community programming side through public health, early intervention, healthy beginnings, and healthy families. So those would be our first kind of entree into the work. And as a result of this project, we would have workflow analysis and ways to actually complete the closed loop referral, so that information would be in kids' charts and accounted for instead of kind of the way we are doing business now. It would include tools that would be developed both for primary care providers on understanding what the services are in the community so that better referrals could be made. It would include pieces for parents about the benefits of developmental screening and how to follow up on referrals when they're made. So that's kind of the proposal is for a cost share investment that would include our funds. And we would also then partner and make proposal to the milestones to Health and Education Subcommittee for access and follow up with a QUIM proposal to Pacific Source. That's the quick and dirty overview. There is much more information about general metrics and evaluation and the detailed budget. The justification for funds, we were hoping to propose this as a total QUIM proposal because of funds availability with QUIM proposals not being available until mid-year. That's when we backed up and looked at a cost sharing opportunity. The timing on this would be a kickoff in April, and it would run a 2-year process. And I have more information about that for anybody that's interested about what would happen in that 2 years. But more importantly, with the OHSU project, we would be the third in line in the state. And should we miss this opportunity, it could be another year to 2 years down the road before we could access their services again. So that's kind of the time constraint around the apps.
Great. Are there any questions about the project?
Got it. Anything I missed that you think is important?
No, you did a great job of an overview, Brenda. I think that one of the most important things and what impressed me is it really is a matter of leveraging all of our partners, and that recognizing we're not just putting all the cart before the horse, if you will, which sometimes tends to be our strong suit, but really going back very methodically, and the support with OHSU is going to be critical around our evaluation and being able to scale and continue to move the project along, so that when we do put that ask in front of subsequent funders, we can show them it's evidence-based now. You know, it's all been proven out, and we're able to make those moves. So, no, you did a great job of summarizing.
So I think we're ready to move to a vote. Not hearing any dissension.
Tim, I make one other comment that I just want to make sure that the Leadership Council is clear and aware that the Steering Investment Committee did recommend these to the full group for approval. So just in case we were in complete consensus.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's helpful. So the next action is for us to take a vote on this particular proposal. Marcy, could you flip up to the budget? I think it might be helpful to see how this works with the budget just before we take a vote.
Yes, hold on just a second.
Yeah. If we're going to spend money, it's nice to just really see where it's coming from.
Yeah, the funds proposal is that all $56,000 of this investment would be proposed to come from Family Support Service dollars, which are federal dollars, and they call out specifically in available uses, work with health partners to improve health of children and access.
Marcy, could you make the screen just a little bit bigger? Great, even I can see it. So just to see the work the investment committee and Brenda have done to map out exactly where this falls. So I just wanted that context as we go to take a vote. So this is a board action. So for voting board members, I'm looking for a motion to fund this particular project. I missed that. Did someone say something? Hello? Did someone make a motion?
Heather and I are being quiet. We're ex officio and not voting board members. Neither am
I will motion.
I. Thank you, Ben.
Was that Ben?
Yes.
And a second?
We need a second.
Oh, I should do second. I'll do second again.
Perfect. That sounds good. So all those in favor of funding this screening project, say aye.
Aye.
All those who vote against it, say nay. Hearing none. Any abstentions? Great. So this is approved for funding. Way to go. Next is going to be to talk about literacy, books in the home proposals. So Katie, I think that's you.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not even close to any visionary behind this, but I just let Brenda know I would talk about it for a minute because it kind of fits into that regional planning. But this proposal is specifically, there is a small amount, $645, asking for promotion materials for Imagination Library. So stickers, book samples, brochures, and registration forms to kind of, so the hub can help promote and get that up and going where it's being piloted. So that's a small portion of this proposal, and you've already got to hear about that program. And the larger portion is, I think, is really exciting and came out of some visioning and work group in Warm Springs in partnership with the hub, and that is around the development of native language board books for children. And I did not know this, but board books are those hard books. Maybe everybody else knew this. And so, and I'm not sure, and maybe Brenda can fill in the gaps if anyone has questions about kind of who we're working with to develop these. But as you can see on page 17 of your packet, there's a design phase. So kind of designing books in native language, and then a publishing phase. And the outputs that we're really looking at for this project are the number of native language books designed, published, and distributed, and the number of students receiving those books. And then further in on that evaluation process, we'll be doing a parent survey to think about satisfaction with Warm Springs education, cultural and heritage and health and human services, elders, and native language teachers. And then obviously the longer term outcomes are increased KA literacy scores and also increase in children with native literacy skills. And similar to kind of first language or native language, even and as we talked about for Spanish speaking families, this research tells us that this really matters for children. And so and also for cultural heritage and honoring that work. And again, this was really developed in partnership. And so that piece of the proposal is for the board books, also the shipping and CD taping. And so it looks like it's going to include a CD to articulate native pronunciation, which is really neat. And that is for $15,355, making for a total proposal of $16,000 for this project. Brenda, I don't know if you want to add, or if anyone else who's been involved wants to add to that.
Well, I think the only thing I would add is that this is very much intended to be a come alongside when we first started talking about Imagination Library up at the reservation. I think Craig, the librarian up there, was really quick to connect me into some of the culture and heritage folks that said, well, it's good, we want to see books, and we would like to see books in native language, and can you help us with that? And so Jaylyn's here, and I don't know if she wants to say anything, but our hope is really to build this partnership beyond even the board books down the road. And we were able to see an example that Cow Creek was able to pull together, and they've done all the research on the one place in the continental United States that we can have board books made, believe it or not. And so, so all of that groundwork has been done, and it would totally be a resource that would support that native language work on the reservation.
Can you see? I don't know.
So this is Jaylyn Sumba. Yeah, we're really excited about this opportunity, and we're hoping that it leads to more opportunities. I know the last discussion that I was involved with, we were talking about putting the language with sound, so that they could be not only reading, but they can hear it, so that it can be kind of a way to teach language within the home, where they don't really have to go to the language department or the programs or things like that, where they can try to start doing this stuff at home. And then hopefully that engages them more to come to the classes that are offered, because they have low attendance, and we've tried multiple different ways of trying to engage the community. And so I think if we can get them to, I guess, see it and hear it, and then maybe that'll engage them more to want to get more involved. And then the school district has started implementing language in the classroom. So I think it just adds to what's going on in Warm Springs. And so we're really excited. I know I was when I saw the book and saw the opportunity. And so we're looking forward to continuing this partnership.
Any questions about this proposal? I have a question, just in terms of how many different native languages is this being done in? It's more than one, I believe?
The proposal is the opportunity to do it in all 3 languages, and we'll see what the preference is, but we budgeted for all three languages.
Awesome. Great. Hearing no other questions, I will entertain a motion to fund the early literacy books in the home project.
Hey, this is Kate. I just IM'd everyone. I'll motion to vote yes.
Okay. Yay for Kate.
But I have to jump off now.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, Kate. Is there a second?
Oh, are you do a motion? Not yet. Oh, is it second or motion?
We have a motion.
Okay, second.
All right.
Okay.
Your second.
I couldn't tell if Kate would motion. I guess she did.
Marcy, did you get that?
Yes, Kate was first and Amy was second, right?
Yep.
Perfect.
Always.
All right, sounds good. All those who approve, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing none, this is approved for funding. Way to go, congratulations. It's a great project. Next up is Upstart Preschool Pilot Proposal. Brenda, that's you.
So we were approached by the Waterford Institute out of Utah, and they first approached, I think there were 4 hubs, narrowed it down, and now there are 2 that they are proposing to enter into a pilot with for Upstart, which is a web-based preschool program that they have rolled out in Utah and in some other areas as well. The program in Utah actually has a it's been in place for 8 years, and they had a 5-year longitudinal study of how the effects of the preschool program have worked. It is set up to be done in the home with an adult and a child. In most cases, a parent. We're looking at the possibility for a couple of other options. But for some of our areas or some of our kids who do not have access to preschool, we are proposing to do a pilot try of this program and see if it works as well for us here or has the potential that it is seen in Utah. So we are proposing a pilot of up to 35 kids. Your proposal on this one talks about an investment up to $70,000. And the reason it says 70,000 is because there are different levels of cost per child for the program based on whether they need access to technology provided for them. So the cost obviously is higher if we buy the equipment. The good news is that in preliminary bids that we have talked about here, the cost is actually significantly lower than the $2,000 per child proposed by Waterford if we buy equipment ourselves. So that up to 70 will be less, even if we have 35 kids. We have had this program vetted in presentations to a variety of folks that are listed on here. We have 2 Head Start programs that have waiting lists that they are not going to get to 4-year-olds, and this is only a 4-year-old program. We have outlying areas, Brothers, Post, Paulina, I think Ashwood was one, where there are low numbers of kids, and then there's some potential for some kids at Warm Springs as well. The bulk of the kids that we believe will be enrolled in the program are probably La Pine direction, where less resources are available, and there seems to be more identification of kids both on the Head Start waiting list and others. The curriculum is based on the creative curriculum, although it has had adaptations that are owned and copyrighted by Waterford as they have developed it, and the pre-post assessments based on the TS goal. And so this would allow us to contract with Waterford for services and purchase equipment and access to internet for families that do not have that access. And for us to pilot this and evaluate at the end of August and into September as kids are transitioning into school. The piece that we did also negotiate with them for that was new to Waterford was that we weren't interested in just purchasing the service from them for this group of kids, that we wanted to do some whole child approach. And so have agreement that at the initial parent meetings and where the initial assessment is done, we would introduce and make access to developmental screening. And where that's coming up, tie kids and families into school catchment areas that they will be attending for any early transition, early registration activities, and provide access to literacy services as part of that broader approach. So we'll also gather some information from that about what parents are doing and not doing, and where some of our more remote families may be accessing or not accessing things prior to having kids show up for school. So proposal is $70,000. It is a pilot. It is coming up. It would start in February and in August. And so the time, the short time frame is part of the reason that we are not looking to other resources to help cost share this, but to actually put the time and effort into getting it off the ground. Question? Concerns about screen time with kids? I have the answers to that. The screen time that is recommended in this process is less actually than the National Association for the Education of Young Children's recommendations. So when I say web-based, it's participatory, parents and kids. There is some screen time with kids, but then they also receive electronically activities that they do and come back and report on. So it isn't all screen time. Individual coaching with parents or the adults working with the kids, face-to-face time with them, the beginning, midway, and at the end with a graduation. So.
You know, this is Donna, and you know, Brenda, you kind of kept coming in and out. You guys know I'm hard of hearing anyway. But I just wanted to mention, and although the focus in this proposal is very much around our rural families and rural communities, I think that it's still important that we recognize that when Letitia, Letty, and Cerulli gave their presentation, that we heard a lot of feedback about how some of these families, like, they couldn't afford to put their kids in preschool, but they're thriving. And we do not want to create that perverse incentive for families not to be making a good wage because they can't get into certain programs. So I think that as we get really intentional about where we invest, it frees up other monies to kind of fill the gap, if you will, for those families that are making too much to qualify for a particular program, right? But we want to make sure that we continue to really support and undergird them in the ability to thrive in their neighborhoods. And this, yeah, I really feel that this has a big piece to play in that.
Other questions? Comments?
I have a question. How long is the pilot?
They begin in February and in August. And so we're doing a one-time shot until we evaluate how it works for us and what the application could be. One of the things that both hubs that are doing this, and Blue Mountain Early Learning Hub up in Northeast Oregon is the other hub that's going to try it. One of the things that we were really cognizant of is that a preschool classroom, even though that is would be our preferred method, we're looking at $200,000 a year by the time transportation and everything, and it still doesn't fit every family's needs. So we still have families that it's still not the right match. Until we can work on a broader look at universal preschool offerings, this is a piece that might fit, and in fact better for some parents than for others, and is certainly more affordable. So we're interested in trying it and seeing how that works out.
I wanted to make sure that it was clear that this is a not to exceed 70K. We may not hit that mark, but it is a not to exceed.
But so do we know who the students would be or how they're selected yet? Are those criteria in place?
We started vetting, in particular, folks that do not have access to preschool, that their 4-year-olds would not have an experience minus this. And so that's when I mentioned Brothers. There are 3 families there. There are 4 families in the post-Paulina area, and the schools tried other outreach opportunities and haven't been able to maintain those. So they were kind of low-hanging fruit. We have wait lists on Head Start that have already, the staffing has already done some outreach to parents, and upon approval, we have letters for them to actually go out to sign up. So that's out of the Children's Learning Center in Madras, their wait list, and then working with Kim Snow, she had a pretty significant wait list for Lapine in particular, who has a lack of preschool opportunities down there, period. So yes, we have done some early identification. The partners have about who the parents would be that would sign up for this and outreach. And then we've also explored a partnership with Karen and her staff around potential basically exempt family and friend providers. And I don't know if that's going to actually be a go, but we're hoping to even test it with some providers that have 4-year-olds that don't have a structured environment to see if it can help kind of support early child development in those settings.
I guess that was my last question, was to ask Karen how this impacts any of the childcare providers in our region, particularly around their efforts to move up with Spark or the Oregon Registry. Is this a conflict or is this in sync?
it wouldn't really be a conflict because you have to be licensed to participate in Spark. And when Brenda and I have had conversations about who to recruit to, it's really been around Brendan Family Care that's exempt care. And there's only 1 or 2 children being provided for, and they're looking for enrichment experiences for children and don't really want to have access to rich programs that children can participate in. So it wouldn't be pulling from Spark rated programs or programs that are going after that rating.
Thanks.
And it's interesting. I would say a couple of other things on like the affordability, the access, you know, to some of you, I've said this before about how in a community, you know, there's only 50% families that could even fill a slot, meaning that on average across the United States, communities don't even have 100% slots available, right? They don't exist. So for example, in Bend, there's the Growing Tree, right? And they have a wait list of 500 plus. 500.
Wow.
And she actually, Tammy Rundle, some of you know her, she actually told me a couple weeks ago that she eventually had to say, I can't add any more to a wait list. And I'm very honest with families that this is my number, and yes, I can put you on it, but I'm sorry, you know, oh, I'm at 500 plus, and she eventually had to stop adding to a wait list. So it's not even affordability. I mean, we just don't have slots. You know, when we talk about, you know, a region in terms of attracting jobs and families, if you don't have affordable housing in childcare and preschool, high quality or any quality, let's just start there, then we're really at a disadvantage for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, I'm a broken record on this, I think, at this point.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep it up. I think that a lot of, I mean, am I wrong? I think a lot of, particularly the Growing Trees wait list is infant and toddler as well, which is remains to be a huge need.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments about this project? Very good. I will entertain a motion to fund the Upstart web-based preschool pilot.
I'll motion.
Was that Ben?
I can see you there, Ben. And is Amy going to second? What a surprise.
Right here, okay? Some of us can. Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. So all those who in favor of funding the Upstart project, say aye.
Aye.
There's one. Any votes against it, say nay. Any abstentions? Very good. We'll consider the Upstart project funded. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Really exciting to see how this is gonna work out. Web screen time seems counterintuitive, but I think this is an amazing opportunity to reach into communities that are for children that otherwise wouldn't have access. So I think it's an awesome project. We'll learn a lot through it.
Hey, Tim.
Very good. Yes.
Before you move forward, Brenda, whatever you did 2 talks ago, you were close enough where I could clearly hear you. And as we've gone through, it keeps getting fainter and fainter and fainter. So since we're going to hear your report, can Marcy, can you put her right in front of a mic, please?
The microphone array thing had gone back down all by itself, so it should be fine now, but
Okay, thank you.
I don't know why I did that.
I so appreciate it.
Okay, 10 seconds.
We can turn.
Do you need
Here's your
do you
chance.
need the badge to get? Okay, you're out. Bye. Thank you so much.
There we go.
Okay, Brenda.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be
Oh,
Marcy.
I'm trying to show you.
We can see you good too, except your eyes. Yay!
So I just have a couple of things to add as a director's report. I'm not sure that Buzzy totally shared that we had actually hit our fundraising goals with Imagination Library and began enrollment of kids in Crook County in December. And so that really is kicking off to where kids are actually going to have books in their hands in March, I believe. So just wanted to make sure that people got that. Besides the new hires, we have our whole work plan submitted, and I'm sorry that Sue left because we all need to celebrate that the work plan is done and the work is actually moving forward. So wanted you to know that. Just a couple of policy things coming up. The state legislature convenes again on Monday, February 5th. And we have a potential lobby day scheduled for early childhood systems on February 12th. So maybe contacting you for some success stories or examples to use with legislators, and some of you may also be planning on attending that. We are putting together a draft legislative platform, and so across the early childhood systems, the Children's Institute, Relief Nurseries, Head Start Association, Early Learning Hubs. And so that draft platform that we signed onto as a hub with others for the last legislative session, the draft of that will be to executive committee the end of this month. And so we will share that with you as that is vetted through that process. We are not sure what the outcomes will be about some of those asks for restoring funding or consideration of that, because as you all know, based on the ballots that are out now about support for healthcare will help determine how big a hole there is in the state budget and what's available and what's not available for consideration. So the other thing I think I would just like people policy-wise to be aware of is we've had a lot of legislative representation changes for us as a region over the last few months. And so if you know your legislator or thought you knew your legislator, that may have changed, and we have more coming. So John Huffman, representative that covered, I believe, Jefferson, Wasco, and maybe part of Deschutes County in District 59. He actually left to take a position in the Trump administration. There's a new appointee, Daniel Bonham. He's a business owner in the Dalles, and so we will be asking for some time with him to get to know a little bit more about him and his perspective on early childhood services. Ted Ferrioli, who headed up the Senate side as a senator, was longtime champion and covered again into Jefferson County. He took a state position, and so Cliff Bentz from Ontario was appointed to replace him. So he's an unknown to us a little bit as well, and we will get to know him. And then, of course, coming up, Gene Wisnett, longtime legislator here in Central Oregon, Sun River South, and big advocate for kids programs. He has announced that he will not be running for re-election, and so his time is short, and Newt Bueller has thrown his hat in the ring for governor. And so he will not, he will either be elected governor or not, but he will not be retained as a representative because you can't run for 2 seats at the same time. So lots of changes for us in Central Oregon. The challenges around that will likely be that we will be without senior leadership much in the legislature, and we'll be spending a lot of time getting to know our legislators and letting them know the work that we do on behalf of kids and families. So just a few quick notes. So that will be coming up. So don't be surprised if you're asked for success stories, stories that help support particular investments, and or an ask to come along and visit with them when they are either in town or the other side of the mountain. So questions?
Thank you, Brenda. Awesome. So next on our agenda is public comment, and I'm sure there's a lot of members from the public there standing waiting to make comments. Now's your chance. You can let the crowd in the door. No, just kidding. Very good. So hearing no one step forward into public comment, just a reminder, our next meeting is May 3rd, and we're going to be
March
meeting
7th.
at the High Desert.
March 7th.
March 7th?
It says March 3rd. It says March 3rd.
Oh,
It's not Saturday.
no, it's not on a Saturday.
We're not meeting on Saturday. March 7th, very good. And that'll be at the High Desert ESD there in Redmond. So future agenda items, we're going to be spending some time on home visiting coordination. And Brenda, you're putting together a panel for us, which should be awesome. And then also hearing something from the equity team and a report about, what is IDI? I am so sorry.
Agricultural Development Inventory.
Perfect.
Inclusion.
Very good. So that's our plan. Anything else for the good of the order?
You did a great job, Tim.
I am sick and I'm not at St. Charles. So yeah, that flu thing is very interesting. Good reminder to wash your hands and stay out of flu zone. All right, very good. Signing off. Thank you all very much.
Wait. One more.
Marcy?
Yes.
Yes?
We just asked for some input along the way, and I don't know if the best way is to do it now or actually just to send out an email, but it would be nice to have some input on what went well today and whether folks like this format or just sometimes, or how this works. So
maybe we could take just a couple comments for a little bit early. So any successes to this meeting or anything you'd change?
I think it overall, from my perspective, it saved me a lot of time not traveling.
Agreed. I think if we're going to do it, we really need to figure out and hone the technology. It's really interesting to be in a room like this, yelling at the people who are in the room, so that so maybe we can figure that out. And I think that's just on our end.
Yeah, it seemed like we could hear. I couldn't hear Buzzy very well. No. Either.
I couldn't either, and he was standing right behind me. So.
Okay.
Yes.
I think we're 90% there, though.
I agree. Yeah. That was very convenient.
Any other comments?
I very much appreciated the mission moment today.
Yes. Thanks, Ben. You bet. Besides the fact that the Letty and Cirilla show is awesome. They really need to do a
Those two are
talk show.
great.
They're great. Yeah, very informative.
Thank you, people. I'm back. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Betty, is that you?
That is me.
All right. You got a kudos for a great presentation.
Thank you. I was kind of sweating a lot. I was waiting. I'm like, okay, Lenny, prepare yourself for when Brenda calls you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. I think we're done. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Tim. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Can I say